Hey guys, welcome back here to the Advanced Bass Fishing, and appreciate you guys swinging by the channel and hanging with me a little bit. And guys, today I want to talk about one of the biggest things that holds anglers back from becoming better bass anglers and catching more fish. There is a ton of things like this, but I'm sort of trying to itemize them a little bit and sort of break down each one of them, because a lot of these, they're not real popular, they're not flashy and sexy topics, but they add up. And just being aware of the fact that you can do something so you can do something very easy to prove your fishing goes a long way. So we're going to get into that in today's episode here. Also, guys, real quick, just a thank you out there to everybody that's been taking time to support Advanced Bass Fishing by using all my channel memberships and, going into and using my Tackle Warehouse link in the description. You guys have probably been hearing me talk about it, that YouTube made a bunch of changes and everything that's really hurt a lot of the creators. So all you guys that are supporting the channel by subscribing to the channel and using all the links in the description, you're really helping keep the channel on YouTube, so appreciate that. Okay, there's literally a list of 100 different things I could go over into this, but this is just the topic for today I want to talk about. And one of the biggest things that holds anglers back from maximizing their day on the water and really going from catching a couple fish in a day to catching a lot of fish on the day is your boat positioning and your casting angle. We've talked about some of this before, but I really want to reiterate some of the high spots here and talk about how you can easily fix this. Now, let me give you one piece of advice here. If you are serious about wanting to get better as an angler, you just need to take one day and just do this. Let me give you a good piece of advice here. I know it's hard to do because when you go to the lake, you want to fish, but one of the best things that you can do is go to the lake one day and practice on nothing but your boat positioning. Practice stopping and starting your boats, practice moving in and out of cover, practice, lining up on certain angles specifically, to make a cast on a shady spot or something like that. And just learn how your boat moves, because every single boat stops and starts differently based upon your trolling motor thrust and the weight of your boat. And one of the big keys in bass fishing that a lot of people overlook, and if I could give you one piece of advice here, is when you're approaching a piece of cover, you have to come in to that cover at the exact right speed. Most anglers, let's say, for example, you have a good looking lay down tree that you want to fish in the front of the water. You can see it up there, 100 foot in front of you, really good looking tree, probably there's a bass laying in there. The biggest mistake that a lot of people make is they either come in too fast on that piece of cover, or they come in too slow, or they come in too far away, or they come in too close to it. Now, how you want to come into this piece of cover and your boat positioning has a lot to do with the technique you're fishing. Obviously, if you're pitching and flipping something, you're going to want to be a little closer to the cover. If you're throwing something like a topwater or spinnerbait or crankbait down the outside edge of it, you can be farther away from it. So the casting distance is relative to your technique, but one of the things you need to remember as far as your boat positioning is you always want to get your boat in the ideal spot in order to efficiently make that cast where you can stay as far away from the fish as you can, but you can still make the accurate presentation. Now, this is important to remember, guys, because you're going to catch a lot more fish the farther you stay away from a bass. That being said, you have also got to be able to be in control of your bait and manipulate the fall of the bait, manipulate the action of the bait, and you can't do that if you're too far away from it. So there's sort of a fine line between being too close and too far away, and you just sort of have to practice until you get that down. It's like, if you're flipping a jig into a lay down tree, there's sort of a sweet spot distance-wise that gets you the maximum casting distance where you can still stay in contact and work that bait efficiently. That's a big thing there. The next thing with it is you always want to make sure you come into that piece of cover at the right speed. Now, the right speed, if you can accomplish this, and this is one of the things I'm talking about just going to the lake and practicing, is, let's say, for example, you're going up to our lay down tree we just talked about. You want to make sure that your boat glides into that piece of cover as you're making your cast. In other words, your cast should come into that piece of cover without your trolling motor being running. Quiet. You want to be as stealthy and as quiet as you possibly can. You don't want to be on that trolling motor when you make your cast. So how you do this you have to take a lot of stuff in consideration. You have to take in consideration the wind speed and the wind direction, and if there's any current in the water. All of those are going to factor into how you're going to have to approach that piece of cover as far as the speed wise goes on it. So that's another thing that takes a lot of practice. And then finally with that is we're coming up to our lay down tree in the water, and you have to take a moment and sort of analyze how you want to approach that piece of cover to make the best cast for it. And a lot of that is looking at that piece of structure and breaking down where the high percentage areas are. Now, the high percentage areas are going to be your best ambush points. If you're flipping and pitching, it could be a part of that tree that's a little bit more complex and a little bit tighter together. If you're throwing a crankbait or spinnerbait, it could be a nice branch or a nice limb coming off the tree that's fairly large around, that offers some good shade and cover. But based upon what your technique is, that's how you want to line up your boat positioning and your casting angle. Let's say, for example, you've got this lay down tree in the water, and say there's a big branch off the tree that's as big around as your leg, and it's laying at a perfect angle. Now you may have to position that, you may have to go all the way around the tree and come in at a certain angle where you can make a parallel cast right down that log that's in the water. So every piece of cover is different. If it's a boat dock, if it's a lily pad field, if it's a stump, if it's a riprap bank, anything like that's going to be a little different. But main thing about it is you've got to be efficient, and you've got to be stealthy, you got to be quiet, and the more that you're like that, the more it increases your odds of catching fish. And this is there's two areas that I see bass anglers struggle at. You know, all the anglers I fish with on the water lessons, or the co-anglers I draw, the two biggest areas where most anglers are weak at, that they could improve and see vast improvements in their results, is their casting accuracy and their boat positioning skills. Don't ever underestimate that. It's like if you are a master at casting, and you can put that bait where you want it, and you can put your boat where you want it, guys, your odds of catching good fish go through the roof. If you're a sloppy or poor caster, or you're not very good on a trolling motor, and you're not real good at positioning your boat, and you're always out of position, you're too far away, you're too close, then the number of fish you catch is going to drop, down through the hole in the floor, if you're weak in those areas. But the good thing about that, those are things that you can easily improve. It doesn't cost you any money to do it. All you have to do is go to the lake and spend some time with it. And I can promise you guys, if you work on those two things, you're going to see a noticeable increase in the consistency of success you have bass fishing. So anyway, guys, hope it helps out. We'll talk later.